Hello, this is Margarita Monet from Edge of Paradise, and you are listening to the Metal Pit Podcast.
Welcome to the Metal Pit Podcast, where we delve deep into the albums and bands that shaped metal. Please visit us on our website, The Metal Pit, at themetalpit.org, where you can find album reviews, interviews, videos, photos, and live show reviews. Also, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Metal Pit. And for some video interviews, check us out on YouTube at youtube.com at the Metal Pit 666. You can email the podcast at themetalpit.org if you have any questions, album suggestions, or whatever. And also our website, we're looking for a few more volunteer writers. So if you're interested, please email me at info@themetalpit.org. Today, I'm your host, Blake. I guess I should have said that. And today I have with me two of my writers at the Metal Pit. I got Eric and Billy. How are you guys today?
All
We're
good.
doing great. How you doing?
Good. Now I'm going to mention it's 10 a.m. in the morning when we're recording this podcast. So it's a little early for what we usually do, but it just worked out that way. So we better not pick a really heavy band to start with then at 10 a.m.
Or we just need a double shot of espresso and then keep the heavy music coming, right?
Yes. So today we're going to talk about the band Savatage and their 1991 album Streets, a rock opera. Savatage is an American heavy metal band founded by brothers John and Chris Oliva, hope I'm saying that right, in 1979 in Florida. The band was first called Avatar, but shortly before the release of their debut album Sirens in 1983, they changed their name to Savatage as Avatar was already taken by another band. They have released 11 studio albums, 2 live albums, 4 compilations, and 3 EPs. Their 4th album, Hall of the Mountain King, which is, I think, where their success really started, was that one where they finally got their name out there more than their first 3 albums, to me anyway. Let's see, on October 17th, 1993, 6 months after the release of their album Edge of Thorns, guitarist Chris Oliva was killed in a car accident. Following his death, John, his brother, the singer, along with producer Paul O'Neill, decided to continue Savatage in memory of his brother. The band released 4 more studio albums and went through some lineup changes before going on an extended hiatus in 2002. They reunited for a Wacken performance in 2015. And Billy, you were there. We can talk about that now, or we can talk about that later. Do you want to talk about that now, Billy?
Maybe we'll do it when we do the live stuff.
Okay. And one more thing, I will ask you this. There is talk of them making another album. Billy, you know something about that, don't you?
Yeah, no. So, I've been very encouraged about a new Savatage album for a couple of years. Chris Caffrey, of course, the guitar player, all during COVID, he was talking about on podcasts that I've seen him in that, him and John are trading music back and forth. But what really sort of sealed the deal is John did an interview with Rock Hard Magazine just recently in April 2023. And he confirmed the band's working on a new album. I mean, naturally, he says it's turning out to be an amazing record, a 10 on 10. So obviously he's going to say that. Their target, though, to release the album is April 2024. Because he wants to do all the big European festivals. So I doubt we're going to see certainly no Canadian or US tour. He's only talking European festivals. Good news for me, he really wants to do Wacken again, so I already have my tickets for next year. So that's cool. They have material for 3 albums basically. He's going to cut it down to maybe 2 albums. they're going to record all that material, and he may choose to release even another album down the road off of recorded music. He talks a bit about, I mean, directionally, he talks a bit about poets and madmen along the lines of the song Morphine Child. He talks about there's a Queen influence. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be similar to the later sound of Savatage versus the older sound, but I guess we'll see. The one interesting thing he said is half the songs will be him, half will be Zach, and there'll be one or two where they do duets. And he's bringing in keyboard players from TSO because he says the song structures are beyond his keyboard playing capability. So all that's kind of interesting. And he said it's going to be called Curtain Call, which is his farewell. So that's some pretty good recent updates from John directly. So it sounds like it's a definite thing for sure.
That's good. I'd be very interested in hearing that. I would say Savatage is like one of my top 20 bands ever, actually. Like getting ready for this podcast and listening to the albums again, even not that I haven't listened to them. And it's just
pretty exciting. Yeah.
Yes. So where am I? Okay, so we're going to talk about the 1991 album Streets, a rock opera. It was their sixth studio album, and it is a rock opera dealing with the rise and fall of a fictional musician, D.T. Jesus. It was originally released in October on 91 on Atlantic Records. It was John's last album as lead vocalist until 1995's Dead Winter Dead, and 1997's The Wake of Magellan, where he shared lead vocal duties with Zach Stevens. He resumed lead vocals exclusively on Poets and Madmen from 2001. Let's see. Let's talk. Eric, when did you first hear about Savatage, or maybe this album, if it happened to be your first one?
So I saw a video on MTV. I want to say it was Headbangers Ball. It could have been the Metal Half Hour, honestly, because it was a long time ago. But it was for Hall of the Mountain King. And I saw that video and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, this riff is like one of the best riffs I've ever heard in my life. I still feel that way. I still feel like that song is like an 11 out of 10. Not that we're rating Savatage songs today, but I saw the video and it made such an impact on me. I was like, I need to check these guys out. And yeah, I think after I saw that video, I remember I picked up the cassette and I played the living Jesus out of it, and thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've followed them ever since.
And Billy, when did you first hear Savatage?
Yeah, I was a little late to the game, late to the party on Savatage, but for me, I discovered them with Gutter Ballet. So just after Hall of the Mountain King, I remember seeing the musical video for Gutter Ballet, and it clicked with me right away. Loved it. I'm pretty sure I went out the next day and bought the album. So quickly went backwards, got their old stuff, and then I was buying each new release at the time. But yeah, that was my discovery of the band at Gutter Ballet.
Now, for me, I believe it was also Hall of the Mountain King for me, but it's, you know, when you get up in age, you forget. And we're doing all these podcasts where I'm trying to remember, when did I first hear this group and this group and this group? But I kind of, because I looked through my vinyl, I have 3 vinyls and I have Hall of the Mountain King and 2 of the other first 3, but not all 3 of them. But I'm kind of thinking I heard Hall of the Mountain King and then went and bought that and went back and bought the 2 earlier ones. And then I look and I have like 9 CDs of them after, because that's when CDs started, I guess. And now we're back to vinyl again, but I haven't went to get any updated copies. So yeah, I would think it was Hall of the Mountain King for me too, is when I first heard them. Oh wait, I also have the EP Dungeons Are Calling on vinyl also. Now the band, oh wait, I wanted to say something else. For this album actually was first going to be called Gutter Ballet. But then they didn't think they were ready to do a rock opera, which they wanted to do. So they decided to save that for the next album. Let's see. And Paul O'Neill, the producer of the band, I guess since Hall of the Mountain King, he had a book, or he wrote a story, a book, whatever, and that's Chris found it at his place and said we should do an album on this, and that's kind of how it got going. And let's see, did I already say this? I don't know. After Gutter Ballet is when Chris Caffrey left. So on this lineup for this band, we got John Oliva on vocals and, of course, piano, keyboards. We got Chris on the guitar. We got John Lee Middleton on bass, and we got Steve Walchos. I'm not sure how to say that on drums.
You got a tricky name. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and might as well just start talking about the album. So we'll talk about the opening song, Streets. Billy.
Yeah, so great intro to the album. I always consider this sort of one of the album's heavier tracks. It's kind of ominous in its tone. Kicks off with a children's choir in the background. Pretty cool. It's along the style of Gutter Ballet, or maybe even some of the older albums. I dig it a lot. I mean, John's vocals, he's got a wide range here. Everything from his emotional singing, which he's going to do a lot of on this album, all the way up to his higher range screams that he's famous for. We get the Savatage backing vocals, an excellent Chris emotive solo sort of in the middle of the song. Just great album. I mean, great song, and it really sort of kicks off the underlying DT storyline, Downtown Jesus and his life, sort of an intro. So yeah, great overall way to start the album.
And Eric?
Yes, this is quite the opener. I love the staggered riff that Chris comes up with, and yes, the ambient choir really adds this just kind of haunting mood to the song. That guitar solo in the middle with the neck pickup, man, Chris just performed some magic there. It's a sign of things to come on just quite a remarkable album. I hadn't listened to this album in a number of years, and I was reminded just how amazing this track by itself is, but such a great album, which we'll continue talking about. And then John, of course, with some of his shrieks there towards the end. The trademark. I guess you either like it or you don't like it. I have some friends that couldn't get into him. I always thought John just had his own style, so I embraced it. I think it's a great song now.
And I always think whenever I hear a children's choir on a song, it's always kind of hauntingly, which is good for me, I think. But I always get that from this song kind of sets up the story. Billy mentioned the story of the whole album. So it's like an intro kind of to the album too. And then we go to Jesus Saves, which is the most played live from this album at 117 times, according to setlist.fm website. Eric, what do you want to say about Jesus Saves?
But, it starts off, with just a little bit of a background. So just a little bit of talking to kind of warm us up for the song. And then Chris Oliva comes in with quite the killer single note riff that he really trademarks. And he just carries on through Edge of Thorns. But I've got to say, it's definitely one of the most entertaining songs sonically on the album. Some of the orchestration is reminiscent of Gutter Ballet, and that's a very good thing in my humble opinion.
And Billy?
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with everything Eric says. I think just the song is another example of how Savatage can write such a well-written melodic chorus that kind of sticks with you. So that stands out for me. Eric talked about Chris. He has two really great solo section. One more on the emotional side, another faster paced solo, which is pretty cool. Agree. I think the orchestration is very effective, the way it comes in, not being done for the sake of adding it. It fits in the song. And John's vocals are just so rich and mature here. I love John on this album. It's quite stunning, his performance here. And then maybe just kind of an interesting fact that I had read. Jesus Saves, there's actually two versions of the song. There's this version that they debated and it went back and forth, and they said, yeah, we're a metal band, we're going to go with this version. But the alternative take is same lyrics, but it's a gospel style, so way slower. Apparently I've never heard it, it's quite haunting as well. But they figured, well, we're a metal band, we're going to go with the metal song, and they had enough ballads on here, so we never got that version. But I want to hear that version.
There's also there's a narrative version of this album too, I guess. I've never seen it, but I've read about it. Eric, you've never heard about that, have you?
I have not.
Okay. Yeah, I because I actually listened to another podcast where they talked about this album, and I know the guys on there said you got to listen to this, but I've never really looked it up or anything, but I did see it researching this, so it would be interesting to hear that. It's just, I guess somebody's telling the story maybe before they play the songs or something.
Yeah, I think so.
But anyway, so then we go to Tonight He Grins Again, and I'll let Billy start here.
Yeah, so a shorter track, certainly compared to the first two, just over 3 minutes. I mean, it starts with John's beautiful piano opening, and very much an emotional song, a heavy song, and we're going to hear a lot of these type of songs as the album goes through. For me, it's a real sweet spot for the band. I mean, I love when they shred as well, as much as the next guy or girl, but these sort of soft ballad things just make the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Just excellent emotional song. John's vocals are just raw, emotional, kind of along the lines of Summer's Rain or When the Crowds Are Gone from Gutter Ballet. Just a great sort of soft ballad type song. I know it's about sort of a DT story, the monkey on his back, his addiction, and coming into play. So just a great overall beautiful song.
Eric?
Well, it sounds like Billy pretty much covered my notes and my thoughts about the song. So well done. Yeah, emotion is what I take away with this. Just an excellent piano melody that John came up with. It really just kind of hits you in the heart. Nice vocal melodies by John. And obviously the song has some punches to it with electric guitar and then some orchestration, but it's a great song. I mean, for a slower song and a shorter song, it's an excellent song.
Now, as I've said before, if anybody's listened to the podcast before, I'm not a big fan of ballads, but Savatage, I can handle their ballads. Like some of them move me even, and
Yep.
Stop. There's not too many bands that move me. I mean, sure, I could listen to Metallica, it moves me, but it's in a lot different way than something like a ballad with John's vocals and the piano. I love the piano too. I don't say I listen to too many heavy metal bands with a piano in it or keyboards for that matter. It would be Dream Theater and Savatage, and we want to go back to the old days, Deep Purple. That's about it, really, because that's about all I can handle. But it's so awesome the way they do it, and they definitely make it work, at least for me. Then we go to Strange Reality, and this is a lot different pace than the last song, of course. It has a really catchy riff, and it's a great heavy Savatage song. Eric, what do you think of Strange Reality?
This tune opens with a nice driving mid-tempo crunchy riff in the key of D, and it definitely has an 80s vibe to it, and I say that with nothing but glowing fervor. The chorus is very upbeat, and it's a good song. Not one of my favorites, but it's a good song. It is very catchy. The chorus is really catchy.
Billy?
Yeah, so we're in the reverse here. So I'll say Eric kind of hit on most of my points here. So yeah, won't drag it out. But again, I just find it very much a rock opera style song, mid tempo, very melodic again. And I agree. Like if I were doing a ranking for the album, this one might sort of fall to the bottom one or two from my perspective, but still a good song. And from a story perspective, it's sort of a warning of what DT Jesus could become if things go bad for him. So important for the story, but not my favorite track on the album.
And then we get to another ballad as we have the song "A Little Too Far." And Billy.
Yeah, so I'd say all my comments for Tonight He Grins Again falls here. Just, beautiful song. Again, John and his piano is pretty much this entire song. Incredibly melodic, catchy, interesting vocals at the end. I'm not a big vocal guy, but I mean, I'm sure there's deeper meaning, but they always kind of stood out at the end when John says, John Wayne caught the last train out. Spock and Kirk, are gone, and no one left to beam me up. It's kind of an odd way to end the song, but again, somebody might know a better, deeper meaning to those lyrics, but they always stood out as a bit odd for me. And from the story perspective, it's sort of DT realizing that he may have gone too far in his life with some of the bad things. So again, love it. A nice, beautiful ballad type song again.
And Eric.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to this tune. It's a pretty good ballad. Yeah, I like it. I don't think it's one of the better ballads, but I think it's at a good spot on the album. I like the placement, kind of the strange reality, a little too far, and then the next track, I think it fits in there really well. I like the vocals. Yeah, that's a pretty good tune.
And let's go right to the next track. Then You're Alive, and this is less than 2 minutes. This is a really quick one here. So, Eric.
Yeah, this one, it's funny. Looking back, I don't know if I really had the same perspective back in 91 or even just in the 90s on the song. But it's the vocals are decent. It's a short song. It's probably my least favorite on the album for whatever reason. I don't dislike the song. I just feel like there are quite a few songs that rise above it. But I do feel like this song kind of leads us into that Sammy and Tex, into the next song.
And Billy.
Yeah, so from a pacing perspective, I think it's good, right? Coming off a little too far, Your Alive works well because the pace picks up significantly. So a good contrast there. Definitely has that rock opera type feeling to it. I mean, it's a 2 minute song, so unfortunately, we don't get much from Chris here. No standout solos in 2 minutes, but I suspect maybe it's for the story. I mean, the lyrics kind of talk about, this is sort of DT's moment and he's back and the crowds are coming out to see him. So, and then the way they end the song, like if you notice, the song just ends incredibly abruptly. And that's for the story of what's about to come next for Sammy and Tex, because his life is going to take a drastic change in the next song. So I would agree it's not one of the best songs, but I think from a story perspective, it has its place there.
And you can continue and start talking about Sammy and Tex then, Billy.
Yeah, so Sammy and Tex, again, just from the story side of it, I mean, this is really, DT's doing well. He's got success, but, his old drug dealer comes back looking for the debt that he's owed. So, an argument pursues, and DT's manager comes in and he gets killed during the argument. So there's, he's back down again, DT, in his life. So that's kind of the story. But, again, I think it's a great song, one of the more aggressive, faster songs on the album. I find it's a lot like older Savatage material. You get Chris some of his older school shredding on the song. So, John's much faster vocally. I think it's a great song. Fits well on the album.
And Eric?
This is one of the rawer songs on the album. It's heavily guitar driven. I love the shuffle feel to the song, and John Oliver with the shriek early on in the song really kind of lets you know that they're not messing around here. Brothers John and Chris absolutely own this song. This is one of the more rocking songs on the album for sure. This and Agony and Ecstasy, which we'll cover in a little while. But I really dig the song. I've got to say, to add on from a musical perspective, the interlude in this song is more advanced than really anything you heard in the early 90s as far as your progressive metal, prog metal. It really stands out. It definitely shows some maturity and intelligence. And Paul O'Neill's, you can definitely see he kind of laid a foundation, and the bandmates definitely executed.
This is one of my favorite songs on the album also because, well, I like my heavy stuff and fast stuff. And and by the way, the song You're Alive, I guess they've never played that one live. There's a few on here they've never played it live, but sometimes I think they kind of do a medley. Maybe we'll get to that later. Maybe Billy will fill us in on that since he's probably seen them live a bunch of times. Anyway, next song is St. Patrick's, and this also they have never played live. And this is maybe a song, I don't know, for me, it maybe took me a few listens to have it grow on me, but it's still a good song. And Eric, what do you think of St. Patrick's?
This is a pretty neat song. I feel like this kind of, embodies might be a strong word, but there is so much consistency, which I feel like both of you gentlemen would definitely agree with. That sounded two formal gentlemen. Guess you two dudes would agree that this definitely captures really the message with Streets on a musical standpoint. Billy's got the lyrical forte going here, and I'll stay with the music, which is kind of my, being a guitarist for over 30 years. This is kind of more of my wheelhouse. But I love the dynamics that they use. Some of the softer moments, some of the heavy moments. Savatage is one of the best bands, in my opinion, that really can balance out those soft and heavy moments. Not everybody can do it. It's not easy as a musician. It really takes everybody in the band, but I like the song.
And Billy?
Yeah, no, agree. I love the song. I think it's great. It's again, as Eric said, it's what Savatage does best. The contrast between the emotional and the heavier orchestration, like in this song, it works perfectly. Like the orchestration and the heavier moments just adds that real dramatic effect. So it works well. From a story perspective, of course, after the death of DT's manager, this is really DT going into a church and basically looking for answers about what's to come next. So, I love the song and also plays a key part in the story as well.
And I was just going to mention, like, we've done a lot of podcasts where we do like a thrash bands or whatever, and it's a little more not interesting, but when you do a band like Savatage, where you have a ballad, then you have a faster song, and then you have a semi ballad, and it just kind of mixes it up a little more when we're talking about it, I find. So the next song is Can You Hear Me Now, which is I guess we got another power ballad here, I guess you would call it. And they've played this song once live, according to this website. Billy, what do you think of Can You Hear Me Now?
Yeah, another very strong track for me. Again, the words with the lack of, can't think of another word, but just heavy raw emotion. Again, I keep using emotional song, but definitely falls into the ballad camp. I know Eric's better at sort of explaining the guitar than I ever could be, but just love the Chris is playing here. It's like very emotive, not about how fast he can play. It's just filled with feeling. John's vocals are so dramatic in the song. again, just an emotional roller coaster of a song. And from the story side of things, again, this is just DT being haunted by people in his past, and thinking about some of the things he's done previously. So great song, another favorite of mine.
Eric.
So this track I actually wrote the most about, which kind of that actually caught me off guard. But this is a song I've always enjoyed, and a lot of it's the emotions. I mean, they really kind of gives me goosebumps, honestly, when I listen to it. Still to this day, the clean arpeggios that Chris plays on the guitar, coupled with the echoing drums, is it's a pretty uncommon pairing there. But the boys in Savatage pull it off well. And how about that powerful chorus, vocally and musically? I mean, it's incredible. The entire middle section is absolute genius. Chris's array of palm muting and single note riffing, combined with the rhythm section, is a highlight on the album.
And then we go to New York City, Don't Mean Nothing. And then this has a nice acoustic opening, and you might think, oh, we're going to get another ballad, but then they kick it up a notch, and it's a great rocker on this album. Eric, what do you think of this song?
Yes, well, you hit the bullseye, Blake. So it starts off slow. I remember the first time I heard the song somehow, and I was like, okay, we're going for another ballad, and then boom, and there's drums come in with the toms, and I'm like, wow, I really like the drums quite a bit here in this particular song. But yeah, it starts off slow, and then boom, it hits you across the face, and in a good way, if you're a fan of Savatage. But yeah, it's a good song. I like it. I like everything about it, honestly.
And Billy?
Yeah, I would agree with you guys. I mean, certainly opens with that nice acoustic intro. And again, John's amazing voice. But yeah, I like the way it picks up. You could actually hear Johnny Lee Middleton's bass pretty strongly, sort of in the instrumental part of the song, which is cool. Another, very memorable, well-written chorus. Yeah, I think you guys said it best.
And then we go to Ghost in the Ruins, which is actually also a name of one of their live albums, which was a tribute to Chris on his passing. This is one of my favorites from this album, and I think this song is kind of like a classic Savatage song. So if you met somebody who didn't know who Savatage was, you'd play this and say, this is kind of says who Savatage is, even though they have lots of different things going on, of course. But Billy, what do you think of Ghost in the Ruins?
Yeah, definitely one of the strongest songs on the album. I mean, it's a Savatage masterpiece, dare I say. Love the chunky guitar. It's a quicker pace song. John just shines on vocals. Such a mature vocal delivery. The band on backup vocals, very good here as well. The chorus is just a total earworm. It's so well written. Again, just love this track. Some great interplay between Johnny and Chris towards the middle of the song from an instrumental side of things. And yeah, I just love that vocal part where John's, he shouts like, I know what you know. It sort of, again, makes the hair on the back of my neck stand every time I hear it. Just such a raw, emotional vocal delivery. Really good song for sure.
And Eric?
So arguably the most balanced song on Streets, with heavy and melodic moments throughout. Yeah, Chris really uses some nice tension on his rhythm playing, but John complements it with, yes, he has that raspy voice, but he has a really nice verse melody going there, which kind of counter like balances out the riff there. But the solo is certainly a highlight. His shredding adds just another layer of intensity, and just like Billy, I'm 100%. I mean, you guys, we're all old school Savatage fans, so you can't help but relish when John's, doing his I know at the very end of the song, just kind of adding to the climax of the song. Just the only way that he can do it, man. What a great track. One of the best.
And then we go to another ballad with If I Go Away. Which in this song has some thought-provoking lyrics. Maybe I won't say anything about that in case Billy does. So, Billy, what do you think of If I Go Away?
Yeah, so as you said, and I guess maybe this is a good place to say. I mean, for me, this is my favorite Savatage album, but like I can understand why it's a controversial album for some, just because of all the ballads, right? Like, if you prefer the older material, then I don't know, you might be disappointed. A lot of podcasts I hear, people, they're either love it or hate this album, or somewhere in the middle. But yeah, again, so just wanted to sort of preface with that, because again, this is yet another ballad, and then we're going to end with a trio of ballads shortly. So it's heavy on that style, but we've said it already, just another emotional ballad. John and his piano, great chorus, raw emotion and pain in the vocals. And from a story side of things, again, it's just DT wondering, what the world would be like without him if he sort of took his life. So it's a heavy song as well, lyrically and musically. Great one.
And Eric?
Yeah, so this track, this one gives me some chills with the piano intro. I feel like John has really kind of found he's not super gifted on the piano, but he knows what he can do, and he does it well. And it's a very well thought out intro. And to add to that, John's singing is stellar on this track. The chorus is one of the most memorable on this album. I think it's a great song, and I didn't make note of this, but that chorus, John shines, and then Chris, he doesn't overdo his lead playing. There's rhythm guitar, there's some chord sustaining, but then he has these nice, like he's sliding with he's got the high gain on, and he's doing these slides and bends. It's very complimentary to what John's doing on vocals and what the rest of the band is doing. It's really running a delicate slope, because somebody could just open up and just start wailing, and then you would lose some of the meaning, some of the emotion, kind of what the message you're trying to send. But Chris just does such a fine job. But the whole band actually really does a fine job on this song.
That's an excellent point, Eric. Well said, for sure.
Thank you.
And then, excuse me. And then we go to Agony and Ecstasy, and surprise, surprise, this is my favorite song on the album. Because it's one of the faster ones, and I always love the guitar on this song. Well, the whole album, actually. But Eric, what do you think of Agony and Ecstasy? You mentioned it earlier a little bit.
Yeah, this wouldn't be out of place on, say, Power of the Night. Easily the heaviest track on the album. Again, John and Chris steal the show. The accents by the bass and drums really elevate the verses. I feel like that might be overlooked maybe by the casual fan. But holy cow, did you hear that blistering guitar solo? Whoo, rest in peace, Chris. Absolutely sizzling.
And Billy?
Yeah, no, agree. Definitely one of the faster album tracks. Sort of takes you back to the older Savatage days. Another great, memorable song by the band. Again, good use of the backing vocals. I mean, I had Chris's guitar work here, but Eric already talked about that. And from a story, looking at the story here, we've got DT struggling with his urge to go back on drugs and his overall addiction. So the song title and sort of the aggressive song kind of fits well with the story as well. So yeah, good track, and it's needed for what's to come. I mean, 3 of the album's heaviest emotional songs are still to come. So from a pacing perspective, it's good to get that one in.
Yes, you get like the fastest song, and then you go to probably, I guess you would say, maybe the slowest song, or because this "Heal My Soul" is just piano and vocals, and this is a very moving song to me. I don't know, and can't really explain it, but even just the other day listening to it, and just the emotions you get from it, from his piano and his vocals, is just amazing. But it's actually kind of hard for me to listen to sometimes. So, Eric, what do you think of "Heal My Soul"?
Yeah, this is a pretty good tune. This is definitely another one where it just kind of brings things down a little bit. It is simplistic, but it fits right on the album. Don't really have much else to add.
And Billy?
Yeah, no, I think you said it well, Blake. Again, just it really hits me, right? Like emotionally, as these next three songs will. There's not a lot going on, but it's powerful. We also something subtle here in the song, but that children's choirs back again, used very well, sort of in the background. Just I think we said it before, adds to makes the song a little bit more haunting.
Good
The
point.
track's almost gospel to some degree, but the story is really DT kind of coming across a homeless person and helping him, and so it's a way of him kind of healing his soul after some of the bad things he's done. So yeah, great track, emotional and powerful.
And that's the thing, the song, like this is a concept album, of course, so it's part of the story. But if you just listen to the song and you have your own thoughts in your head
Yep.
of something else, like if you've lost a family member or whatever, and then that's why I think that's why it's kind of moving for us, or at least for me, when you listen to it and you think of it makes you think of something else, not this DT guy. You're thinking of something else for yourself. And so it is an emotional song. So then we go to Somewhere in Time, not the Iron Maiden album, but the song by Savatage. And let's see, Billy, what do you think of Somewhere in Time?
Yeah, so again, I mean, I think just about everything is going to apply from "Heal My Soul." But again, you got John and his beautiful piano opening, But then we do get, for contrast, some of heavier emotional music along the way. John's vocals amazing, and Blake, I think you sort of hit it right on, right? I mean, there's a very clear story here, but for me, the album connects emotionally, not because of this story, but just the way I apply it to my life and my individual interpretations. All these songs stand on their own. They don't need to be part of this story to make sense.
Yes.
But anyways, yeah, slightly off topic there, but just again, more great, mature Savatage songwriting. And from this on the story side, again, it's a spiritual for DT. He's kind of realizing all his mistakes, and kind of leads into Believe, where he's going to find what gives him comfort and religion towards the end of the song. And again, we may not view it that way, and but we interpret it as we want, but that's sort of the way the story goes. But just a great song, and the heaviness at the end, the way the band sort of the music peaks at the end, just before it goes back to John's piano. Just a great, well-written song.
And Eric?
I would definitely echo what Billy said. He's very apt in his description of the song. And something that I realized listening to this album this week is, to me, Heal My Soul and Somewhere in Time by themselves, while not spectacular, they're decent songs. But when you listen to them back to back, I feel like there's a little bit more substance to them. And that kind of goes with what Billy was talking about with lyrically. But to me, they really mesh very well back to back. So I like to listen to. Of course, I am a bit more of a, I guess, I don't know if I want to call it a completionist, but I typically, with the bands that I listen to, I like to listen to the albums all the way through. And I think with these two tracks, really with these three final tracks, you just feel that finality, and they really mesh very well together. There's fluidity there.
And then we finish the album with the song Believe, which of course is another emotional, great, powerful ballad. And Eric, what do you think of Believe?
John Oliver definitely, does a fantastic job on this tune. Has one of his better vocal melodies. And the takeaway to me is that chorus. I mean, that chorus is just such a gem. They've obviously done it, had a couple, different versions before. You'll hear it with TSO, but the original is the absolute best, in my opinion. It's a nice closing track. I'm normally not huge on slower songs closing out albums, but Savatage pulls it off. They really do. I mean, it's a excellent way. fill in the adjective, but it's the song stands on its own, but it's an excellent album closer.
Billy.
Yeah, no, well said, Eric. I know in the last few podcasts we've sort of talked about closing on like a powerful song, and in at least one case, we sort of went down on the band for not ending the album that way. But for Savatage, it makes sense. I mean, and particularly for this album, and closing this way for a rock opera, even makes more sense. So yeah, yeah, it's not fast, but it is, again, for me, my favorite Savatage song. And I know that's saying something, given great songs off Hall of the Mountain King, but just for me personally, I connect with the song so much. There's just it's a song I listen to when I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry. It's just John's putting himself out there vocally, just his raw emotion on full display. Just an amazing song. I mean, some of the singing, and not specifically to the lyrics. I mean, we all will interpret that our own way, but the way he sings, like some of these lines, like "I am the light, I am the dark." I mean, just so powerful. And he gets into the, I never wanted to know, never wanted to see, I wasted my time. Like, just the way he sings those lines are just chilling to me. Yeah, just great emotional song. One of my favorite all time songs by any band or any genre. Just love it.
And I was gonna say I love the lyric, I wasted my time till time wasted me. And that has a lot of deep meaning. And all I ask of you is believe that the album is over. Sorry. Okay, so now we're gonna rate the album. Billy, I'm gonna have a guess, but what do you rate this album?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. It's a 10 on 10, and again, I said it before. I get why it's not a favorite album for many Savatage fans, but for me, I just connect with it on an emotional level. It has a lot of meaning for me, and a deep connection. So again, no-brainer. 10 out of 10 for me.
Eric?
I give it a strong 9. I thoroughly enjoy the song, and I don't want to give you any spoilers for album rankings, but it's more than respectable. Let's put it that way.
And I will also. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I was just going to throw this in. I don't know how much time we're going to spend on tours. Sounds like Billy's seen him a million times. I caught him twice, but this Streets tour really made an impact on me. I will say that. We were driving in just this downpour, and I was like, okay, am I going to be able to find my friend? I can't see but 10 feet in front of me on the highway. Was able to pick him up. We went to a place called the Bayou in Washington, D.C., which is no more, and probably saw the loudest show I've seen in quite a few years. They cranked it up, and it was quite an experience. That show, they played Streets from beginning to end, so it made an impact. So maybe 9 is not generous enough, but I give it a strong 9. I like it very much.
And I also give it a 9, and we'll figure that out when I do my top album list, because I love Savatage. So this is just one of the ones I love, but I love a few more even better. And we'll do the live thing. You just kind of mentioned you seeing them live, and I've never seen them live, but I know Billy has. So Billy, talk about walking or whatever you want to talk about with seeing them live.
Yeah, no. So I mean, not like some of my other bands that I've seen ridiculous amount of times. Because Savatage, particularly in North America, are not doing tours multiple times a year, and they've been out of commission for many years. So, but I think I've seen them 4 times. Probably one memorable, because it's the first time I ever saw them on the Gutter Ballet tour. That was at the Montreal Spectrum. So great show. That would have been early to mid 1990, I'm thinking. But like Eric, a very memorable show for me was on the Streets tour. Again, we were in Montreal, but a much smaller venue than where the Gutter Ballet tour was. I don't know if that was intentional, but it was a really memorable show on a few accounts. I think it was the weather was really bad, so the band showed up like 3.5 hours late.
Wow.
I think the show kind of ended at 3 or 3:30 in the morning. Um, and so by the time they actually got, it was a weeknight, so the crowd wasn't great even if they got there on time. But by the time they started, I think there were 25 or 30 people. And so just and Montreal is a serious metal city, arguably top two, top three in North America for bands to play in terms of crowd size. So it was very odd, but it felt like the band was playing to you, so that was pretty cool. They couldn't play the whole album because there was no more time. The club had to close, so we only got the first half of Streets and I think the last two tracks. But what was cool is Savatage stuck around. I got to chat with them all. They signed all my stuff, and the fact that there were only 25 or 30 people, the band put on an amazing show. Like you would think they would dial it in, but no, it was an excellent performance. And then lastly, just the highlight for me, not just for Savatage, but probably for almost any concert, was the reunion show in Wacken Open Air in Germany, 2015. Blake, you mentioned it at the start. This was essentially a joint Savatage and TSO show. The two largest Wacken stages are side by side. And so with 80,000 people, in the pitch black, the show started late at night, and Savatage kicked off on the one stage, just playing their songs. Then on the right side, right beside the stage, TSO jumped in, played their songs. And then for the final third of the show, both stages went live at the same time. And so playing like classic Savatage songs, but with TSO backing them up. And so the light shows were completely synced. The vocalists, they couldn't see each other. They were side by side, but of course blocked by the sides of the stages. And this was sort of the swan song of Paul O'Neill. Like, he put this whole thing together. Put the bands into rehearsal for endless hours to pull this major show off. But they did it. It was just fantastic. I mean, to hear, I talked about Believe, one of my favorite songs. They played that song towards the end of the show, and you had like John Oliva on his keyboard on the left stage, and they had a TSO singer, Robin Borneman, who's a great singer, but where John's vocals are clean, he's a bit raspy, and so you're standing there and the lights hit the one stage and John plays, then that stage goes dark and the other stage goes on and Robin plays. They're doing a duet on that song. Just incredible. The whole TSO backing singers are doing the backing vocals for the song. All the musicians are playing. It was just synchronized to perfection. Arguably the best concert moment in history for me. I gotta say, I was standing there in the cold and it was probably raining, but it was just such an emotional moment that kind of overtook me. So to this day, it stands as my greatest hearing Believe played this way as my greatest concert memory ever.
That does sound pretty awesome.
That must have been quite a treat, Billy. Whew.
Yeah, no, it was. I can't even maybe I wasn't. I'm not afraid to admit. I think I had tears sort of coming down my eyes on that field there, just hearing this beautiful song played this way. It's just incredible.
Wow. And now I did see Trans-Siberian Orchestra once at one of their Christmas shows. So that's, I guess, the closest I've come to seeing Savatage was that. And actually, Paul O'Neill sent me an email once because I wrote an album review for TSO's Beethoven's last night, and I don't know, he just wanted to thank me for the review or something like that. So that was kind of special.
Oh, that's very
to get
cool.
that.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice.
Anyway, so now we're gonna get to we're doing our top 12, or we're ranking Savatage albums. So we have 12. We included the EP Dungeons Are Calling from 1984 in this list, but not because I think there was 2 other EPs, but I think those were just singles and things like that, really. So we're gonna do 12. I'm gonna let Eric go first in case he has to leave, and you can either start at, I guess you start at 12, I guess, and work your way backwards. I guess is how we do this.
That sounds like a plan, Blake. All right. So at number 12, the only album that I actually dislike by Savatage is Handful of Rain. This one just never really seemed to gel to me. At number 11, Dungeons Are Calling. That one you could definitely hear the potential of the band. Sirens at number 10. Holocaust is there's some cool stuff on there. Actually, Sirens the title track, but yeah, that's a good album. The production, I feel like with Dungeons Are Calling and Sirens, it's going to happen with bands, their early albums. The production's a little bit tough, but Fight for the Rock, you can really start to see what the band is capable of. I like that one at number 9. Power of the Night, number 8. How about some Washed Out? There's some cool stuff on that album as well. At number 7, this is where it's kind of got tricky for me this week. There are a couple moments here, but I went with Poets and Madmen. It wasn't easy for me because there's just a lot of ridiculously great guitar playing on this album. Some really good songs. I went with Dead Winter Dead at number 6. Honestly, those two really could flip-flop depending on my mood. It's a good album. With that one, you could really see kind of where Savatage kind of was leaning towards or kind of where TSO was going to be born. Some of those influences. Paul O'Neill had some ideas and some input on that album, and you could just see where the direction of the band was going and where TSO was going to be born there. Edge of Thorns, number 5. This one had just, oh gosh, speaking of guitar solos, just had some of the best guitar solos. Couple of the songs sound a little bit hair rock to me. And that's where Zach kind of sometimes his voice would kind of go there. But there's some, he carves a stone. I mean, come on, such a great tune. There's some good ones on there. Number 4, Hall of the Mountain King. One of my absolute favorite songs by Savatage. That song is an 11 out of 10. This is the album that I was exposed to Savatage on. It's a pretty dark album. It's well done. I could probably tell you about every song, but maybe that's another podcast. Number 2 and 3 was probably the hardest for me. And I'm looking at it right now. Number 3 for me, it's going to be Streets. I would call it more of like a 2B. We've covered this entire album on this podcast. The tour really made quite the impact on me as well. Number 2, Wake of Magellan. Slight Edge. Again, it's more of a kind of a mood for me. It's definitely, I don't know if I could say it's a more progressive album than Streets. Streets is a concept album. Wake of Magellan has a lot of progressive elements. I do like what Zachary does vocally and what John does. It's a probably arguably the most musical album by Savatage. Number 1, this is it. I actually was going to dust off the shirt today for the podcast, but Gutter Ballet is going to do it for me. A guitar player in my first band lost one of my albums. Hey, let me just give you a Gutter Ballet. He hands that to me. I played it that night after band practice. Said, oh my goodness, this is never heard anything quite like this. It has heaviness. It's got that operatic, classical orchestration going on. The title track is just brilliant. The whole album from beginning to end, I mean, just makes such a lasting impression. Thorazine Shuffles, kind of a sneaky, awesome closer. If you could really combine those words, those descriptions together. I love that album beginning to end. That was the first tour I saw them on. Just like Billy, it was at a small place in Baltimore called the Network Nightclub. The ceiling must have been about 8 to 10 feet. It was a super small place, and both Chris's were in the band at the time, so I felt like, now looking back, I was just incredibly lucky to see them. They sounded great. They absolutely destroyed it, and I don't know if they could do the album justice, but they sounded exactly like the album, which is pretty tough to do. So that's my list.
Okay, that's awesome. Billy, I'll let you go now then.
Yeah, so some similarities, but some drastic differences as well. But I mean
I'm
that
sure.
makes sense with all the different eras and styles and Savatage. So for me, number 12, this one will maybe shock Eric, but The Wake of Magellan is my
Ooh.
least favorite Savatage
Mm.
album. And it's not about Zach. Like I love Zach Stevens vocally, and some of his albums are at the very top of my list. So it just, for me personally, I think this might be one too many concept albums. I mean, we already had Streets and Dead Winter Dead. And so moving into The Wake of Magellan, just never really clicked with me, to be honest. I always found it a little boring, to be blunt.
Hmm.
But again, that's just me. We all hear things differently, for sure. Then number 11 for me, Fight for the Rock. Certainly, I mean, not necessarily an odd album looking back at the catalog, but at the time, very odd, right? Falling, just before Hall of the Mountain King, but coming after Sirens. Obviously, the record label pushing them into a commercial direction. And for me, the two cover songs, like I don't get it. Like Savatage doesn't need cover songs. They're excellent songwriters, so that kind of never made any sense to me. Then number 3 for me, number 10 for me, Poets and Madmen. We've said it, John's Full Return, but for me, just directionally, the band kind of feels unsure, and maybe out of new ideas. Like a lot of this, we've definitely heard before. Not a bad album, but if I have to rank these, it kind of goes to number 10 for me. But I think Eric did say this. I mean, obviously Chris is gone, not with us here, but the guitar playing on the album is kind of the highlight for me. Al Petrelli does a great job there. So moving to number 9, I have Dead Winter Dead. So mentioned it already, another concept album, first record, I believe, with Chris Caffrey. Again, stylistically more in line with TSO, but I think for me, unlike Wake of Magellan, I think the songwriting here is more memorable, and this one did kind of click with me. Number 8, I have Dungeons Are Calling, so 6 songs here, only about 25 minutes of music. So I think it's got great songs, strong material, old school Savatage, but kind of rank it a bit lower given it's only 25 minutes. Number 7, and this is probably a controversial one, but for me, Handful of Rain, certainly would be a tough album after Chris's death. We got Alex Skolnick, who's playing guitars of Testament fame, but it certainly doesn't sound like a Testament album. I mean, for me personally, I think this is their most underrated album. Yeah, I miss Chris here, but I just think there's a lot of unique and interesting song ideas here. The title track, I love. Zach Stevens is fantastic, but even a song like Chance, right? It's just very innovative. Some might not like it, but the 6 or 7 vocal layers on the track towards the end, I thought that was really cool. I like that. So for me, I think it's a good album. Interesting to note on that one, we actually don't have Johnny Middleton and their drummer didn't want to play, they weren't ready, so this really is sort of a solo John Oliva project overall. with the help of Alex. Number 6, Power of the Night. So again, classic strong Savatage material, but for me, a couple weaker songs, so moves it down to number 6. I mean, the sound is shifting, from Sirens and Dungeons, getting a little bit more, I don't know, mainstream, dare I say. Number 5 for me, Sirens, Savatage debut album, just a classic metal album. Agree that the production is going to be rough, but that's to be expected in the early 80s. But Savatage was such a unique band at that time, and this was really the John and Chris show, and it was quite clear that both of these guys would become part of the metal elite, I think, on that early album. Number 4, Edge of Thorns. And again, this is just excellent Savatage songwriting. Love Zach Stevens on the album. Of course, we have to note last album to feature Chris Oliva, so very sad from that perspective. But I think Zach just perfectly fits the music here. Number 3, Hall of the Mountain King. So definitely my favorite Savatage album before shifting to the orchestration or more rock opera style. Love this album, Hall of the Mountain King. But then we jump to that mid stage is the sweet spot for me. Moving from the Hall of the Mountain King, but not going too far on the TSO spectrum. Gutter Ballet, just an excellent song. The band mixing the old style but bringing in the orchestration. Again, just a great album. 2 incredible ballads, Crowds Are Gone, Summer's Rain. Fantastic. And then Streets. I've talked to that one to death. So that's my number 1, Street. So just a great catalog, something for everybody. And we all hear it differently, so surely we're all going to rank them differently, but great band.
Yes. Okay. So mine now, my bottom 3 are like 3 of their first 4 albums, actually. Because a lot of times I like bands' first albums more than I do the later ones, but I really like the way they went, the sound they changed to or whatever. So that really took it. So my number 12 is their 86 album, Fight for the Rock. My number 11 is Power of the Night. And I have Sirens, their debuts, at number 10. Number 9, I have Handful of Rain. I don't really need to say much about the albums. You guys have already kind of covered it anyway. I have Wake of Magellan as my number 8. Number 7, I go up to Edge of Thorns, as Yes I Love He Carves His Stone and Scraggy's Tomb. I love those tracks. Number 6, I have the EP Dungeons Are Calling, as I love Dungeons Are Calling, of course, and Midas Night is one of my favorite Savatage songs. Number 5, I have Poets and Madmen. And number 4, I have Streets. So I would have gave that a 9, like I said. And so my top 3, I would have gave all the top 3 a 10 if we were doing those albums, which we might do someday. So number 3, I got Dead Winter Dead from 1995. And I love on that album, I love the instrumental Mozart and Madness. I've always kind of liked classical music too. I like heavy metal and I like classical. So I love that instrumental. Number 2, I got Hall of the Mountain King, of course. And number 1 is a Gutter Ballet, just like Eric. So I have Gutter Ballet as my top Savatage album. So there we go.
If we were to combine our list, the number 1 probably would be Gutter Ballet if we sort of averaged out our ratings.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah. But it'd be close. And like I have Streets for. What did you have Streets at, Eric?
Streets was, I had it at number 3, but like I said, so with that and Wake of Magellan, man, it just, honestly depends on the time of day. So, but that's a great one. It's so memorable.
Okay, yeah. So this is one of my favorite bands, like I said, and like I just love the way that they went with the classical thing or the instrumentation, the choirs, the piano, all that stuff. It's just, I don't know. It's a great band. And I do hope they do what Billy was talking about and make a new album. That'd be awesome to see. And hopefully I get the chance to see them live since I never have. So that would be great if it was possible. But I know them coming to Canada might be a stretch. So we'll see. So anyway, thanks guys for joining me. I'm going to mention that the next episode, we're going to be talking about Black Sabbath's album, Heaven and Hell.
Oh, nice.
And so make sure everybody checks out our website again, themetalpit.org, for everything we have to offer. Thanks, Billy and Eric, for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And thanks, everybody, for listening. Goodbye.